Prosecutors have charged a senior Treasury Department employee with illegally leaking personal bank records of Paul Manafort and his deputy Rick Gates to the press. Natalie Mayflower Sowers Edwards is accused of leaking those documents to BuzzFeed, a semi-news site, which published them in a series of stories. Edwards is just the latest member of the bureaucracy to be caught betraying the public trust to empower the hashtag resistance. Molly Hemingway is senior editor of Federalist, and she joins us tonight. So, Molly, give us a sense of the scale of the crime here. These are bank records. Why would she have access to their bank records, and what sort of betrayal is it to leak them to the press?
Yeah, this woman was a senior analyst at the Treasury Department's Financial Criminal Enforcement, Crimes Enforcement Network. She had access to so many of these documents, which are very confidential, about bank records. Anytime there's suspicious activity that gets investigated by the Treasury Department, she was found to have put tens of thousands of them on a flash drive, to be sharing them over the course of a year with a BuzzFeed reporter. And one of the things that's interesting in the affidavit is it says that there's a co-conspirator involved who is her boss at the Treasury Department. We tried calling the Treasury Department's FinCEN office and asking them which part of the office was she in, so we could determine who her boss was, and they wouldn't tell us. So they're being very tight-lipped about this, but it is even she's a senior person, but it's even her boss as well that is implicated in this crime. So
leaks are common in journalism, and this show is the beneficiary of many leaks, I'm proud to say, including even today. But you don't share them with the public unless you think the public, there's an edifying reason for it. The public has an interest in this, has a right to know. Is there any conceivable reason that the bank records of these guys should have been revealed to the public?
She herself said when she was caught today that she was doing this as a whistleblower, that she was sharing it with the reporter so that these records would be safely kept with him. And she claimed that she did not know he was publishing stories about that. While that doesn't stand to reason that that is a reasonable explanation, she was sharing a lot of information that supported this Russia collusion narrative, this idea that Trump was a traitor who had colluded with Russia to steal an election. And the way that story has been fed has been through these types of selective leaks. And it has gotten a lot of people caught up in it who, should not have had their government conspiring against them with the media to create this narrative. And it also probably shouldn't have taken a full year to know this was going on. BuzzFeed stories were actually pretty clear that they were getting these suspicious activity reports, which do not come from a lot of places in the government. And they had been publishing story after story after story of these going back to October of 2017. They weren't well hidden where this office that was leaking it. And I'm actually kind of surprised it took so long for people to finally catch up with the people who were leaking.
Do you think there's any kind of behavior that can't be justified in terms of resisting Trump that the left wouldn't resort to?
We've seen this with this set of leaks and so many of the other sets of leaks, that there is no norm, there's no line that cannot be crossed or violated in service of resisting President Trump. And you have had a lot of people say it's crazy to think that there's a deep state that would be conspiring with the media to undermine the president, and yet you have stories like this. This is not the first person to be arrested for leaking or lying about leaking. You had James Wolfe, the Senate staffer, who was sleeping with a reporter and sharing information with multiple reporters. You had Reality Winner, who was sharing information. There are a lot of people who have not even begun to be caught, such as the people who did criminal leaking related to Mike Flynn. And in fact, I don't think the FBI has been doing a particularly good job of tracking these leaks. This one today was really largely it was the Treasury Inspector General. So there's a lot to be done here if people care about having a government that makes sense and is not conspiring against the president.
Yeah, and doesn't crush unpopular citizens because it doesn't like who they voted for. Molly, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that clear explanation.
Thanks.
Well, it's going to be 420 every day north of the border.